But let's head straight into our next session, where we're going to welcome our gold sponsor, Sainsbury's, to the stage to their session on transferable skills, inclusion, and improving representation. Can we please continue to clap for Sharon Anderson, Director of HR, Corporate at Sainsbury's, and Charlene Ryan, Director of HR, Retail North Zone at Sainsbury's. Continue to use the QR code above to submit your questions to the panel.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning. I'm so excited to be here today, or perhaps that's just the nerves. Same thing, I don't know. But so I'm Sharon. I'm the HR Director for Corporate at Sainsbury's, and this is my colleague Charlene. And we're going to spend about 40 minutes talking to you about our careers at Sainsbury's and the careers, how we got to where we are today. We'll also talk about the transferable skills, what it's like to work in retail. We're also going to touch on diversity and representation and tell you a bit about how Sainsbury's is taking it really seriously. So I'm going to hand over to Charlene, and she's going to start with her career journey, and then I'll talk you through mine. And then we will spend some time at the end opening up for questions.
Okay, yeah, as Sharon said, we're really delighted to be here. I have to be honest, public speaking is not my favourite thing, so be gentle with me, please. I could not pass up the opportunity to be here today. So, start at the beginning. I was born in Luton. Any football fans know that Luton made it to the Premier League last year? So I had to put that picture. Up there. I don't know if we'll be there next season, so I'm holding on to it. We got our first win at the weekend. Nice. We've already lost since then, but I'll just skim it. Little fact about Luton: it's known for hat making. So the football team is called the Hatters. We're about 30 miles north of London, fantastic airport, great train services. This isn't a plug for Luton, but I did just want to reference where I was born and where I grew up, because if anybody does know Luton, it is quite a deprived area. There is high levels of poverty, there's high levels of homelessness, and I'm under no illusion that not a lot of people from where I'm from are sitting up here talking to you today and have had the career and some of the achievements that I've had. So I'm really proud of that. I'm proud to be from Luton, but like I say, no illusion on some of the challenges coming from a place like that. I was brought up by a wonderful, fantastic, amazing single mother, raising me and my brother. Just at the bottom there, you see my younger brother and me and my mum. And I wanted to reference that because my family, both my parents, my husband, they are really the fuel, they are my energy, they are what give me everything that I need to do all this hard work, which I'm going to talk about. So had to spend a little bit of time bigging all of them up, because I won't be sitting here without them. Any recordings I can send to my mum for that, please?
How much did she pay you to say that?
So I was always a fairly academic child. I was one of those kind of all-rounders. I wasn't amazing at anything, but I was pretty good at most things I tried my hand at. So I did go to University of Reading. I've got the picture at the bottom there. If anybody went to Reading or anyone knows it, that's Bridges Hall. I'm hoping that they've demolished it by now, because it was ancient when I was there, and that was quite a long time ago. But had an amazing time at university, really enjoyed it. And after that, like a lot of people in their early 20s, didn't know what I wanted to do next. What I did know is didn't want to go back home and live with my mum. So I went full time in the bar that I'd been working at part time while I'd been studying, and essentially worked my way up to being the general manager of Bar 38 in Hammersmith. It's not there anymore, but if anybody knows Hammersmith, it was opposite the Coca-Cola building. I think there might be a bar or a restaurant there now, but it's not the same company. I learned absolutely loads in the hospitality world, people management and leadership, the commercials and finance. And when I look back on it, there's a lot of responsibility actually for, I think I was about 23 or 24 at the time. I always knew I wanted to progress and do more, but I didn't know what. And I was looking at hospitality and it didn't quite feel like that was where I saw myself going. So I was probably one of the few people that actually chose a career in HR and didn't fall into it. I'll be asking my colleague if that's the same for her in a moment. I started researching what professions I might want to go into. I'd always dealt with a lot of the people stuff in the bar, so whether that be the training or doing the rotas, or if there are any issues, always kind of, Charlene, can you speak to so-and-so about that? And I'll be really transparent as well. I was looking at a career and a profession where I saw the ability to progress, the ability to have earnings potential, financial stability, particularly early in my career, was really important to me. Didn't have it when I was young, and it was something that I wanted to have as an adult. So I applied for loads of graduate schemes. I'm not even going to pretend. I sat in assessment centres where I didn't know what was going on. It tested every part of my ability, but I was very, very pleased and grateful when I got offered a place on the HR graduate scheme at Royal Mail. And I can't speak more highly of the career that I had there, and the support, the development, and everything I learned while I was there. I was able to do my master's in human resource management when I was there, and essentially worked my way up the corporate ladder, as they call it. The last role that I did while I was there as a HR director was covering 3 parts of the business. So probably a lot of you will have heard of Parcel Force. So I was the HR director for Parcel Force operations, international operations, some central teams, and there was also a property and facilities management business that I was the HR director for. So having a really great time, really enjoying it. And then this opportunity from Sainsbury's came. Never considered retail before, although I'd always been open to other opportunities, other industries. And when I was approached, and when I heard about, firstly, what Sainsbury's was trying to do in terms of their strategy, where the new CEO wanted to position the business in the market, thinking about what they were doing on diversity and equity inclusion actually was a big draw to me, and we'll talk a bit more about that in a moment. And I've always been someone that is, I wouldn't say a risk taker, but open and don't close doors. So I took the job at Sainsbury's as the Director of HR for the North, and that is all Sainsbury's supermarkets, convenience stores and Argos stores. And it starts about kind of Sheffield way, all the way up to Scotland and across the water to Northern Ireland as well. And as I started off by saying, I'm from Luton, which is not in the north, if you've noticed. So I've actually moved, so I've relocated, me and my husband have relocated up to Manchester. So I now live in,
That's where I'm from.
I now live in Manchester, and that picture at the top there is a view from our apartment. So it's a really nice part of town. So really enjoying that move up to the north, although very disappointed about the transport link not happening, but less said about that, the better. And so, yeah, really delighted to be working at Sainsbury's now, and as I say, having the opportunity to talk to you about that.
Brilliant. So you've had obviously a really successful career. If you were going to highlight some of the key things that you think have helped you get to where you are today, what would you say?
There's a few things, and I was just listening to the end of the previous presentation, and so much of that resonated with me. Firstly, I think it's about having that drive and ambition. I think you don't always know what direction that needs to go in, but for me, I always had a desire to achieve. It's like a bit of a running joke in my family. You know, I'm a waitress in the bar, and then the next thing I'm running the bar. So it's just, you know, that drive to want to succeed. Education and development and learning has also been really important to me, and I think having my degree, and it's not for everybody, but for me, having my degree and doing my master's really did give me confidence, and actually having my degree opened the door for me for the graduate scheme. But beyond the formal qualifications, always taking those opportunities to develop and learn, whether that be on the job, whether that be courses that your organisation might be running, etc. So always take those opportunities. And risks. So I said I'm not a massive risk taker, but I am always open to opportunities. And probably the key parts of my career so far of when I've gone and done something new, something out of my comfort zone, you know, going into a new industry, moving to Manchester, you know, big risk. But for me, I feel like I'll regret not having done something and given up that opportunity than at least try, and I can always go back home, right, if it don't work out. Exactly. The other thing I think is really important, and I'm sure you'll be seeing people talk about this today, is mentoring and coaching. I've had mentors, coaches all the way through my career, has been invaluable, and sponsorship, right? Particularly in the corporate world, having those people that you know speak up for you when you're not in that room, it is really, really important. So I think for me, those are the things that really helped me with my career.
That's fantastic. What about challenges? Did you ever have any barriers placed in front of you, hurdles that you felt you had to overcome to get to where you are today?
Yeah. I can't think of a specific example of, oh, this thing happened and then I had to do that and I had to do this. But there's definitely been points where things haven't been moving maybe as quickly as I would like, or I felt like I'm ready for the next thing and I can't see the opportunity. Or I might see my peers and I think, I didn't see that role advertised. How did they get that? You know, where was that? You know, some of that.
Yeah.
And I think for me, the way I've always kind of dealt with it is just center myself in terms of what it is I'm trying to do, and actually being really determined that I'm not going to let anything stop me.
Yeah.
And having a little bit of patience. Sometimes you do have to have a little bit of patience. Like was just being said before, it comes to you when you're ready for it. But I think everybody's heard enough about me now. And so I'm going to hand over to you, Sharon, so we can hear about your story.
Thanks, Charlene. What a brilliant story. I'm not sure if I can top that, and it's not a competition, so I won't try. So I was born in Manchester way back in 1977. My parents from St. Kitts. Now, I would ask if anyone is from St. Yay! Oh my goodness.
Oh no, we have to do the Jamaicans now. Jamaicans in the room?
No.
Yay! Sorry.
Well, my husband is Jamaican, so I'll take that. But often we don't, it's such a small island that often we don't, I don't meet people from St. Kitts, so that's great. I was born here in the UK, but my parents are from there. I'm the youngest of 8. There are very few pictures of our entire family. This one, even one of us is missing. I think the one who was taking the picture was my oldest brother. And that's me, obviously, the little girl in the red trousers at the end. I always used to adore this picture growing up. I'd look at it in the family album and go, oh, this is so cute. Remember when I got a bit older and I'm like looking at my next brother up. He said, yeah, do you know why you were looking at me? I was like, no. He said, because I was pinching you. I was like, seriously? So a bit like you, Charlene, my mum played a really key role in instilling drive and ambition in me from a really early age. She took an interest in my education. She made sure that I went to better schools. If the school where I was at wasn't doing its best for me, she would move me. And one of the things that has taken me all the way through my life is every morning, and at some points in my life, I used to travel really far. So growing up in Manchester, my mum moved me to this school, which was in the outskirts, in the suburbs. So I grew up in the inner city. And she said, no, I'm going to send you to this school. It was an ex-grammar school, but it still had really high standards. And I used to have to catch 3 buses to get there. Sometimes we'd get up in the morning and it was dark, you know, and she's standing at the bus stop with me. And we had a little plaque on the wall. And every morning we'd read it together. And it said, aim at the sun. You might not reach it, but you'll get further than if you never aimed at all. And that always drove me. I always I'm going to aim as high as I can. I'm going to aim at the sun. If I don't reach it, that's okay, because I will get higher than if I just aim at the moon or aim at the top of a mountain. So that really drove me, and she really instilled in me sort of this ambition to do well, whatever that might look like. And she didn't pigeonhole me into a career, but like many parents who perhaps emigrated from other countries, they were like, you know, the best roles are, you know, being a doctor or being a lawyer. And so when I was little, I was like, yeah, I'm going to be a doctor or a lawyer. And as I grew a little bit and I realized that there was more to life than just these 2 careers, I started to think about what I might want to do. And I ended up doing a degree in psychology because I liked people and I was really interested in sort of how the human mind works. I'm one of those people that watches those criminal programs, like, anyone with me on that? Like, yeah. I'm always fascinated, what drives people to do these things? So I studied psychology as well. I had a GP when I was young, and he said to me, you know, the psychology profession needs more people like you. It needs more black people. And I thought, okay, great, I will be a psychologist. Well, I didn't make that. But so I completed my degree, and then I came out at the end, and I was in that catch-22 situation where I didn't have any experience, so I couldn't get a job, and I couldn't, you know, and so I ended up living away from home because I was down in London from Manchester. I had bills to pay and rent to pay, so I just got a job. And I did what you did, Charlene. I started working actually at the company that I had temped at during my degree. Long story short, I fell into HR, so it wasn't an intentional move for me. So I was working at this company called Charity People. I was a recruitment administrator, and one of my colleagues had on their books a job for Macmillan. And she said, oh, I think you might enjoy this. It was personnel, that's how long ago it was, personnel administrator. So she gave me the details and I went for it and I got it. And I was like, actually, this is quite an interesting career. And so as I started to work in personnel and then it became HR, I spent the early part of my career really working in not-for-profit, public sector organisations and 1 or 2 small private companies. And then I took a role at the NHS, and that was sort of me going, oh, I want to work in a bigger organisation, a well-known organisation, and something which will give me some of those ER skills, so employee relations skills is part of the technical capabilities that you need as a foundational to be good in HR. I did my master's degree there, so I then professionalised and got my qualification in HR. And then I moved on to a company called IQVIA, which was fascinating. They do pharmaceutical research. And so I used to be the HR manager for a drug trial unit. And so people would come in, there were beds there, and they would take novel drugs, which nobody had ever taken before. And then the doctors and nurses would check the impact on them. But basically, the company did drug trials for the likes of Glaxo, AstraZeneca, and those big companies, because drug testing has to go through a lot of rigor, as you can imagine. From there, I then left, and I used to live in West London at the time, and I thought, right, I really need a big brand on my CV. And BP was nearby. There were other companies nearby too. BP was nearby, and I tried 3 times to get in over a period of maybe 18 months. First time I tried, and they were like, no, you're too senior for this role. Second time I tried, and they were like, you're not the right cultural fit. And then it was third time lucky, and I got the role. And then I only thought I was going to have 1 job there and then move on to somewhere else, as I had done with most of the rest of my career. But actually I ended up staying there for 11 years. And that was because I could progress. And so I progressed. So I started there as an HR business partner. And then by the time I left last year, I was the Vice President of People and Culture, which is a very auspicious title. But I was looking after their BP Pulse business. So if you ever go into a petrol station and see the EV chargers there, I was the person who, from an HR perspective, led and launched that brand into the market and stood up that organisation. And then, a bit like you, Charlene, Sainsbury's came knocking. And I was like, oh, this is curious. And again, I wasn't afraid of taking a move into a different sector, but I'd never really considered retail. But I did, and I'm glad I did. And so last year I joined Sainsbury's, and now I'm the HR director for corporate, which means I look after marketing, HR, finance, tech, corporate affairs, and corporate services. And that's a little bit about me.
Thank you. Oh, there's some things that I didn't know. Could you tell me a little bit more about what attracted you to Sainsbury's then, Sharon?
Yeah, so a couple things. So I was approached. So it wasn't as if I have to be honest, I wasn't actually considering Sainsbury's, but when I was approached, there were a few things that piqued my interest. First of all, it was brand, well-known brand. And as I started to sort of speak to people and go, well, what's it like working in Sainsbury's? I knew people who'd worked in Sainsbury's. And everybody had really positive things to say, like really positive things. I remember I contacted you.
Yes.
So I found Charlene on LinkedIn, and I had a conversation with her, and she'd been in role maybe 6 months at that point. And I asked you what it was like, and she's everything you said was positive. You're like, I've had a really positive experience. They've given me the space I need to learn the business and have my induction. And I was like, oh, okay, this sounds good. The other piece was really customer centric. So coming from BP Pulse as a newish business being launched into the market, one of the things that they had talked about was being customer centric. And I was like, you guys don't really know what true customer centricity is like. And I wanted to go and work for a company which was really customer centric. And then the third thing I think would say was the values and behaviours that we have at Sainsbury's really resonated with me. So be human, own it, and make it better. As I looked that up and did my research, I thought, I can get behind this. And then the other piece for you was the stage of like what the company was going through. They had the new CEO, they had a new vision, and they were on a journey to somewhere brilliant. And I thought, yeah, I can be a part of this, and it's exciting.
And what do you think it would take, and what it takes to be successful and progress a career in Sainsbury's? Because I know that's something that's important to you and I. We've talked about that.
Yeah. What does it take? I think pace. So one of the big differences coming from like oil and gas into retail is pace. It's a fast-moving business. In the oil and gas, they talk about 5 years, 10 years, 30 years. in retail, it's like days, weeks, and months. You know, it's a much quicker turnaround. So and you also have to have change agility. So you have to be able to respond and react as well as be proactive. And things move at a really quick rate. So I think that's really important. Relationships. So the culture there is very friendly, very collaborative, and it's built off of relationships and like real relationships. And when I first joined, I thought it was similar to BP, but it's actually not. So being in BP, there's lots of people that I worked with that I never ever met, even my team, because they were global and they were in other countries and I hadn't had the chance in some instances to travel and meet them. And so the relationships that you built were of a different level because you were always sitting behind a screen or on a phone and you never met them physically. Whereas in Sainsbury's, you can literally meet everybody in person and get to know them on a different kind of level. And I think that builds a deeper level of relationships. Also, a lot of people have been in Sainsbury's for a long time because it's such a great place to be. So they've been there like 10, 15, 20, even 30 years sometimes. And so they've grown up together, they've known each other through lots of different roles that they've been in. And so really being able to tap into the ability to build relationships, I think is super important.
And so the other thing we wanted to talk to you about is a career in retail and what that could look like. Excuse me, I thought I'd get through the whole thing without coughing. And some of the transferable skills that you would have from other industries or even from academia. You may not have thought about a career in retail, and just wanted to put that up there for some prompts. And as Sharon said, there is a whole raft of divisions and departments, finance and HR and comms and legal and everything you would think of in a FTSE 100 company. But one of the things that I wanted to pull out, being the director for HR in retail, is a career in retail. And if you have all these skills and you're thinking about a more traditional career in maybe finance or tech, the kind of pace, excitement that you can get from being in the core of the business, I'd really implore you to kind of think about that. If you're somebody that likes to be around people, if you're somebody that doesn't want to be stuck behind a desk every day, somebody that likes it to be different, likes that challenge, then working in store would definitely be something that you might want to think about and might want to consider. And similar to hospitality, when I think about my career and where I started, actually running a supermarket or an Argos store or a convenience store, you are running your own business. You have full P&L accountability. You have responsibility for all of the colleagues that work in that store, all of the customers that work in that store. And also what I've noticed being in retail particularly and working in Sainsbury's is store managers are pillars of their communities, right? They're known, they're respected, and it is a great career. I would also say for people that it's important to, and I was transparent that financial stability has been important to me, it's good money as well. You'd be surprised. Have a look. And if you want to progress further as a director, those options are all open. So I just wanted to share that and talk a little bit about, if you see those skills and you want that more, dynamic environment, then consider Sainsbury's and please talk to some of the people that we've got dotted about. You'd be happy, as Sharon and I would, to talk to you about what that might look like. The other thing that I mentioned briefly is the commitment that Sainsbury's has to diversity, equity and inclusion was something that I found attracted me. And it's real, right? Sometimes you read the annual report and, oh yeah, we've got these commitments, and then you open the doors and you're like, but they're not doing anything. But they really are. So we're going to talk to you a little bit about what we really are doing at Sainsbury's to really push that forward, particularly in the retail space, but more broadly.
Brilliant. So I remember my first day joining Sainsbury's and walking into the office, picking up my badge and getting everything. And then I walked to the floor where my team were, and we do like smarter working or hybrid working, as you might think. So everyone's not always in the office and people are working from home. I remember that first day, Charlene, I walked in the office and there were black people there. I remember going, oh my gosh, I actually, and it's sad to say, right? But in all of my career, I'd never walked into an office and seen so many black people. Now, am I going to pretend that it's always the case in every meeting or scenario that I'm in? No. I am still sometimes the only, and I'm sure you've experienced that too. But it just showed me that Sainsbury's are serious in creating diversity, because I could see it in the office. I could see it when I walked in. Some of the people in my team are black, and I was like, this is great. Black UK people, professionals, this is awesome. So that was something that really made me believe that Sainsbury's was taking this seriously. And Charlie mentioned our representation aspirations. So we have publicly stated that we want to get to 12% ethnic diversity, of which 3% will be black, in senior and middle management by 2024. So next year, essentially. That's our commitment. And we also have our operating board. One of our operating board directors is the sponsor for ethnic diversity. So we take it really seriously all the way to the top of the house. All of our operating board directors sponsor and mentor ethnically diverse people, and all of the people who report into the operating board directors are also required to sponsor and mentor ethnically diverse people. And then we have I Am Me, which is our employee resource group and business resource group, a brilliant network, and I think some of my colleagues are maybe here in the audience, but a brilliant network. And like most employee resource groups, they spend their time doing this in addition to their day job. It's not paid, but they are passionate about bringing together a community of diverse people. And what we do is champion, celebrate, educate, and help ethnically diverse people to progress by putting on events, having listening sessions, representing the voice of all of the colleagues. And at the moment, we have almost 4,000 members of that network, which is brilliant. And we've been shortlisted for the Ethnicity Awards, so as one of the top 10 ERGs. So fingers crossed, we might be winning that. Who knows? That would be awesome as well. But I just wanted to share that because I do really believe that Sainsbury's takes ethnic diversity seriously. And then if we go on to the next and final one before we open up for questions, I just wanted to talk a little bit about what we do to progress people, again, who are ethnically diverse. So over the last 5 years, we've had some form of ethnically diverse program helping people to progress. The latest iteration of that is called Accelerate You. It was launched this year. So in 5 years, we've taken nearly 500 people, again, all from ethnically diverse backgrounds, through this program. And Accelerate You is all about helping people with management potential to progress into senior positions. It's a modular program. It's tailored to the individual. You get group coaching, you get individual coaching, and it's virtual and physical. And you get a lot of exposure as well to do projects and take things to the board. And it's a brilliant program. So that hopefully has given you a flavour of what it's like to work at Sainsbury's, how we think about ethnic diversity, what the transferable skills might be if you're thinking about a career at Sainsbury's. And now we just want to open it up for questions.
Thank you so much. We've had a few questions come through. Again, if you have questions, please do scan the QR code. You can also upvote other questions people have asked if you want to ask that as well. First question is, when you say you were approached about Sainsbury's, was that a recruitment agency? And how did you consciously focus on elevating your personal brand / networking?
Oh, it's a double whammy there. It was one thing that I think is really great about Sainsbury's, and no disrespect to people who use agencies. Agencies are great. They have a fantastic in-house recruitment team. So I was contacted, and I think you were the same, Sharon, contacted via LinkedIn from an internal recruiter from Sainsbury's. So they were really able to bring to life the culture, the strategy, and for me particularly, thinking about the role being in the North, I had probably a 15-minute conversation about Sainsbury's in the job before they told me it was the North. I was in, right, already, before I'd taken into account and factored in the distance and the travel. From a personal brand and networking perspective, I think for me that is an ongoing thing, right? Ongoing development. You can always do more. You can always build that network more. But I just take the opportunities when I meet people. Really, I'm not doing loads. I think as I'm getting older, I don't know if I can still call myself young. I'm coming to this event. Am I still young? Yes. Okay. Someone nodded in the front. We're going with her. I think for me, I'm just trying to be more my authentic self. Right, because that is what makes me unique and different. I don't need to go out and try and find something special. It's just me. There's only one of me, like me or not. Yeah. That's what it is. So just try and focus on that. If you're trying to be something else or trying to present yourself in a certain way. Firstly, it's exhausting. We've all had those experiences of trying to do that right. It's exhausting.
Yeah.
And you can only keep it up for so long, and then you just melt in with everybody else.
Yeah, I think I'd add to that as well. So yeah, you're right. I had the same experience, contacted by the in-house exec search team. And actually for me, it was a slower burn. So they contacted me first, you know, a year before I actually joined about a different role.
Yeah, they tried to offer my job.
Yeah. I asked her about this role. I was like, I am from Manchester, but I do not wish to relocate back there. Sorry. And so she said, don't worry, we will keep your name. You know, everyone says this, right? We will keep your name on file and be in touch if we have anything that we think you're suitable for. And I never thought I would hear from her again. About a year later, she contacted me, or maybe 9 months, I don't know. She contacted me again on LinkedIn. And so it pays to read your LinkedIn messages, people, especially if you're open to work, right? She contacted me, she said, Sharon, I know that first job I contacted you about wasn't quite right, but I've got another opportunity. And so I said, okay. And we had a chat, and then the rest is history, and I took the job. But from a branding perspective, again, I'm on a journey, there's probably way more I could do, but I do like to post on LinkedIn from time to time. And what I used to do at the time was, I used to do two things. I used to share posts about the company that I worked in and sort of champion the company that I worked for. But I also used to do individual posts. So my little claim to fame is that I had one post on LinkedIn, which nearly went viral. It had maybe like, I think it was like nearly 1 million views, and it was about my daughter. So I like to post things that I think are inspirational or motivational, and it feels natural and authentic to me rather than trying to brand myself. So this particular post was about my daughter, and she was using a Rubik's Cube, and it made me think about some of the things about motivation and reward and things like that. And I thought, I'm going to post this, and I did, and it got a lot of traction. So sometimes as well, if you think about branding, do what you enjoy, share what inspires you, and you don't necessarily have to try and pigeonhole yourself into a particular box of what you think you should be like or how you think you should present.
Hey, thank you. Next question is, what are the main challenges when working up the corporate ladder, and how do you overcome them for you both?
I did a little bit of that, so I'll let you go first and maybe I'll build if that's all right.
Sure. Challenges. For me, my biggest blocker was, I think, myself. My own insecurities, my own imposter syndrome. I've stopped using that term now. I'm not an imposter. I deserve to be here. But I struggled with it for years, you know. I would go into meetings and sit quietly and think, oh my God, everyone knows what's going on except me, I don't get this. And then after a period of time and talking to people, and I had coaching, I had this experience I'll share. So I remember being a meeting. I was with the CFO of the Upstream and BP at the time, and we were sat around a table. He was with all of his direct reports, and I was his HR director. And he was talking about fraud. And he was going on about, you know, we need to do this and we need to do that and X, Y, and Z. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, I don't know what you're talking about, but I'm HR, and I'm guessing all these finance people understand because it's fraud, financial fraud he was talking about. We had a break, and he got up and left the room. And the director, or the VP whose job was responsible for risk and fraud, stood up and went, does anyone know why he keeps going on about fraud? And in that moment, I was like, do you know what? You need to stop this, Sharon, because you always think that everyone else knows what's going on and you don't. And actually, we're all pretty much in the same boat together. So for me, overcoming my own personal sort of mental barriers is what has helped me. That's been my biggest holdback, I think, in my career. And I'm an introvert. I'm more introverted, so I get my energy from myself, not from a lot of people. And so to put myself out there has also been one of the things that I've had to push myself to do.
I think for me, it's probably similar, but there's probably two things that I see that are a kind of a pattern through my career. One is having patience, which I touched on earlier. Particularly early in my career, I always wanted to be doing the next thing. I was like, I've done that 6 months, right? What's the next thing? What's the next thing? And sometimes you do have to be a bit of patient and wait for the right opportunities to come up. So there's probably that as a challenge. And the second thing is, I have this pattern that I do when I go into a new role, and I don't want to call it imposter syndrome, but it's like I kind of wait for permission. I kind of think, oh, do they really want me to do that? Do they really want me to do that? And it happens every time, so I've got to break it for the next time I start a new job. And normally what happens is my manager will say to me, Charlene, you're doing great, just go for it, and then I fly. every time it happens. So I need to work on myself for the next role that I go into, that I don't do that I just go from day one and not wait for that permission or to be invited to just kind of push through with what I know is right.
Thank you. Question for Charlene here. How do you feel about the role of ATS and such like AI-powered tools sifting through applicants and the bias that we know that exists currently in tech?
Oh, that is a big question.
That's for you, Charlene. They called you.
That is for me.
That's for you.
Wow. So, hands up, shared vulnerability. I am not an expert in this area at all. And actually, systems and tech is an area from a Sainsbury's perspective that we are wanting to progress on more and get more at the forefront of. I think with anything like this, and even before when you had the kind of keyword searches and all of these things, we know anything that's programmed by people has the bias from the people that have programmed it. So I think that, you know, as we move into this next frontier, and some of you will know much more about this than me, it's how we keep that visible and that highlighted, that when we're developing these tools, we're doing it with that consciousness that there may be inherent bias in it, etc., etc. But we're still using paper where we are, so come to Sainsbury's. Don't need to worry about those AI tools just yet.
Great, thank you. Goodness, so many questions coming in. I'm going to go with like the top voted before we wrap up. But the next one is, how important and effective has networking been in both of your career progressions?
Should I go? Super important. It's really important. At BP, really important, especially in a global company where it's virtual and a lot of the connections that I talked about, you don't meet people, so you're known by your name. You know, and if people don't know who you are by your name and you're sending them an email asking them to do something, they're like, who's Sharon? Who's Sharon Anderson? You go to the bottom of the list. Also as well, in terms of like sponsorship and progressing to that next level, having worked with people who will then speak up for you in that room full of opportunities is so important. And for me, it was about saying yes a lot in the early days, to put my hand up and go, oh yeah, I'll do that project, I'll do this, just because it expanded my network. And it was a natural way for me to expand my network. So do I like networking events? Not really. I'm not a huge fan of like just networking for networking's sake. But networking with intention, or networking with people that I'm going to work with, and building my network that way, for me feels more authentic. So it's super important. And then in Sainsbury's, I'd say it's even more important, but in a slightly different way. I talked about how it's very relational and relationship driven. So again, you've got to build those networks, but not just network for network's sake. It's now building relationships, I'd say, in Sainsbury's.
Yeah, I'd absolutely agree with that. I think early in my career, I didn't really think about it very much. And when you build a career over a long time in an organisation, I was at Royal Mail for 14 years. People know you because of the work that you do, and I didn't really have to do that much. I did a new job every year, 6 months. Yeah. So you meet different people, you're doing work, and then your reputation gets built around the quality of your work. As you get more senior, I think that does change. There's a level of expectation. If you've got to that level, your work is good, right? No one's giving you pats on the back for doing good work. That's just what's expected. So those relationships are really important. And when you go to a new organisation, like Sharon and I both have, I've been at Sainsbury's, it'll be 2 years in January, and there's been people that have worked there 10, 20, 30 years. They don't know me. They don't know that I delivered that massive, X million pound saving 5 years ago. They don't know any of that. So you do have to be more purposeful of reaching out to people and talking to them, but doing it with a purpose. What I would also say about Sainsbury's and the relational nature of it is, people do want to get to know you as a person. People do want to understand, what you like to do outside of work. Do you have kids? And not in a creepy way, in a genuine, I'm interested in you, right? At first I was a bit like, what do they want to know? But it's because people generally want to, that be human element of our values is so strong. People do really want to know you. And I think there's something as well about businesses that have really big peaks. So, peak starts in August for us, but we're building up to big peak. That kind of energy, that kind of like being in the trenches together, you want to know that person that's next to you that you have to rely on, that you know them, you know what they're about, and you can trust them. And I think that that's what drives some of that.
Great, thank you. I think that's all the questions we have time for. There are a lot of questions actually around actually what it's like to work at Sainsbury's, how to get jobs, how to get a career in HR. So please do visit the Sainsbury's stand and speak to the team there. But thank you both.
Thank you.